run over to the disc. Well, I guess I'm on Discord, aren't I? I keep forgetting that I'm on Discord at the same time as all this shit.
Alright, let's see. We're running out of cool. 2100.
Hey, go ahead and throw the stream up just so we can start getting people coming in.
Oh yeah, it's up. We're on. We're up. Gotta start.
How's my volume?
Sounds decent, I think.
Okay, because like this mic has a problem where I can't adjust the output, so I've got to keep it away from my face. So if I get too quiet, let me know and I'll move it, or I'll move myself closer to it. Otherwise, I think we're going to be doing pretty good. Alright, let me get our Twitch channel up. I like this track, man. So one of the clips... Oh. Did you die? Did I die? Oh. Everything started clipping there for a second for me. I must have had a bad connection. Okay, looks like we're live. Where's the chat? Yes, desktop mode.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Let's see how we're doing here.
Okay. Back?
There's my chat. Yeah, you're back.
Okay, good. Oi.
Alright, well I'm not gonna type in the chat, but I will pay attention to it.
Alrighty.
Okay. Got our stuff up. Political sounds good. I sound good. You sound good. Man, there's a lot of stuff we missed.
Yeah, it's been a while.
A lot of crazy shit. Yeah, crazy shit with the Kavanaugh hearing. Some interesting developments around the world. We're basically gonna, this is really like this whole show is basically a giant status update.
Basically.
All right. Well, what episode are we on? Are we on 17 now?
No, 17 was last time. 17 was 2 weeks ago. Now we're on 18.
Oh shit! Are we legal now? Are we young and wild now? Like, do we get to go on spring break and do things we'll regret for all eternity? Tell our parents that they should be proud of us for being degenerates?
Yeah, if you were a loser when you were 15 and 16 and not doing it back then.
Shit, I was. Alright, okay, yeah, I think we can get going here if you guys are ready.
Yeah, I'm all set if you guys are. Political?
I am ready.
Be safe on our run. Alright. All quiet on the Western Front. And howdy again there, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for the delay. We've been gone for a while. Welcome back. The Knead To Know podcast. Episode number 18 on Sunday, October the 14th. Quite a lovely day so far. Got Breadbox with us, of course. Got Political with us as well. And we've got an action-packed, action-packed full playlist full of news that we got to catch up on, right? Or did everybody die? Looks like you muted, Breadbox.
I thought I clicked that already.
Oh. Okay.
Good times, though. We did miss out on a lot, though. We got a lot of catching up to do. We're not going to get to everything that happened while we were gone, but we are going to hit some of the most important stories, and some stories that are being talked about.
A lot that probably aren't being talked about at all.
I mean, everybody is pretty preoccupied with the Kanye 2020 fight with Taylor Swift. Now we don't have a clip of the Trump Kanye meeting at the White House because it is literally what everyone is screaming about this week. It's racism, this, Kanye's a token Negro, that, like it's
horrible. Can we say that
on both sides?
Can we even say that?
And it's basically, I mean, I hope so, but it is basically the most overblown story in all of politics right now.
Oh, dude, tell me about
it. So we're gonna skip it.
It was not. It was not even that big of a thing. Oh my god!
I just got done having a conversation with a guy. They were showing it on CNN as like they're trying to make it look like it's part of the continuing feud from the VMAs where Kanye interrupted Taylor Swift and that they're gonna take it all the way to their presidential runs. It's pretty hilarious, bro.
Like
but,
what? Like
yeah,
that's fucking retarded. Why would they do that?
It's CNN.
Can I say
they
that?
They want something. Say whatever you want, man. I mean, Don Lemon was sitting up there on TV calling Kanye West a token Negro for the Republican Party, along with what's that guy's name? The footballer. I'm not a sports guy, so I think his name was Jim Brown. Was that right?
Yeah, Jim Brown.
I don't remember his name.
Yeah. So I mean, did you see the SNL cold open? Because that tells you all about it.
I didn't.
Regardless,
I did not watch Saturday Night Live. I do not have cable. I have the cord cut.
Oh, it's on YouTube. You can find it, but it'll give you a good idea of what the news media is trying to spin that meeting as, which is kind of funny because though Kanye West is a little rough around the edges and a little eccentric, a lot of his points about business and manufacturing were actually spot on, to be honest, when I listened to that video. But I guess maybe we should get into more, like serious news, like about, Kim Jong-un. Did you hear that he really, really wants Pope Francis to make a visit?
What? How about with all the young boys or something?
Well, he's...
That's all about.
Honestly, there's a lot of speculation about it. We're going to hear from Fox News. They've got a guy that they're going to talk to that'll tell us about how they're trying to make overtures to the world. One of the things that I personally think is going to come out of this is that North Korea is going to want to use, Christian. They have a Christianity problem in their country, and they want to become a Christian authority so that they can, rule over the Christian people in North Korea more effectively. It's becoming an increasing problem for them having underground Christians in North Korea. And by underground, I don't mean underground, I mean secret.
Well, I mean, they are good at tunneling, but... anyway, end of the clip.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un reportedly asking the Pope to visit his country. That's according to South Korea. The invitation announced on the heels of a visit to Pyongyang by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo Sunday. He says a second summit with President Trump and Kim is close to a done deal. Senator Cory Gardner is a member of the Foreign Relations Committee. He joins us now. Senator, first of all, the Pope to North Korea, is that a likely scenario?
Well, I certainly think the Pope will consider
this
very carefully before he makes any decision to do this. But clearly, Kim Jong-un has a lot to ask for forgiveness.
Like
the assassination of his stepbrother, the blowing away of his brother-in-law, I believe it was, with an anti-aircraft gun.
He just always looks like this, doesn't he?
Basically, imprisonment of millions of people in North Korea, starving his own people for his own betterment and enrichment. So there's a lot of things that this guy, Kim Jong-un, has done that he's responsible for that perhaps a conversation with the Pope would be a little bit redeeming.
We're finding putting this out through a statement.
I'm not guilty of anything.
From South Korea.
See, I don't necessarily
North Korea,
think that.
You know, putting this message through the South. And Chairman Kim apparently told South Korea's Moon that the Pope would be enthusiastically welcomed
South
in North
Korea has their own moon
What do you
now?
think the motivation is there?
Look, the motivation is entirely clear. It's Kim Jong-un trying to flatter the world, show the world that he can bring in big names, big people, the President of the United States, the Secretary of State, the Pope, for Pete's sake, and tried to show that they're a rational actor. But the bottom line is this: they are not and will not be considered a rational actor, a responsible global leader, until they follow international law. International law clearly says, which they're in violation of right now, they must denuclearize. And so until they do that, there's no sort of legitimization that's going to occur of North Korea. Follow the law, follow the rule of law, follow international law, and then maybe they can have all the visits they want.
But all of this coming on the heels of what Mike Pompeo is describing as a very productive meeting with North Korea.
Wow. Very mousy, man.
We had a good, productive conversation, as President Trump has said.
Always looks excited.
You know, honestly, we can kill this this video here. We've already gotten what they're talking about. We'll cover the Pompeo stuff in the next clip. But basically, what they're covering is that, well, like I said before, Kim Jong-un really wants Pope Francis to come make a visit. Apparently, he needs more playmates. But we should watch this next clip. It does tie into this Mike Pompeo visit. Last time we were talking about North Korea, we had a story, if I remember correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, but didn't we have a story about North Korea last time we were doing this, that North Koreans were pretty unhappy with Mike Pompeo, and so he was putting forth another diplomat to run the diplomatic mission in North Korea?
Yeah, we did cover that.
Okay, well, it seems like Mike Pompeo is leading the way again. So basically, what this clip is going to show us is that Mike Pompeo is back on the top of the diplomatic game there in North Korea, and they're pushing for a second summit with President Trump.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says progress was made during a meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on Sunday. It was the fourth visit to the country for America's top diplomat. He had a 2-hour meeting behind closed doors with the North Korean leader. Secretary Pompeo later traveled to South Korea, where he said his meeting with Kim Jong-un was, quote, successful.
I don't have much to add. I will certainly tell you in private about our conversation. But we had a good, productive conversation, as President Trump has said, there are many steps along the way. And we took one of them today with another step forward. And so this is, I think, a good outcome for all of us.
Pompeo said he worked on a second summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un while in North Korea. Marcos Kounalakis joins me now from San Francisco. He's a foreign affairs columnist from Fashion News, as well as a visiting fellow at the Hoover Institution. Marcos, thanks for joining us. Negotiations between the U.S. and North Korea had previously been stalled before Sunday's meeting. Last time Secretary Pompeo was in Pyongyang, Kim Jong-un wouldn't even meet with him. What changed since then to bring the two back to the negotiating table?
Well, we don't actually know what changed, but something must have changed. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken the meeting. He wouldn't have gone there. He wouldn't have had the meeting with Kim himself. You know, diplomacy is very much like pregnancy. It takes a very long time to gestate, right? And the thing that we don't know about this diplomatic dance is it the gestation of an elephant or is it the gestation of a human? And we'll see what happens. I mean, it really is hard to predict, especially as you saw with this clip you just ran. Secretary Pompeo is not going to share with us what it is that's going on there. So we have to just assume that certain progress is being made. Otherwise, they wouldn't be having these meetings.
Well, so that was going to be my next question. The Secretary of State said progress was made. So do we know anything at all about the specific advancements?
Well, sure. I mean, we know what we've done up to this point. For instance, the North Koreans have stopped testing certain aspects, missiles, and they're not exploding any bombs, which is a very good thing. On the American side, to try and build confidence and move towards some negotiation posture and an ability to have confidence-building measures. the United States has stopped doing military exercises. They're not going to have these military exercises with the South Koreans. So we know for a fact that there is some steps being taken by both parties, and we don't even know to what extent other parties are making efforts. We know that the South Koreans, for instance, have opened the equivalent of an embassy in North Korea. So there is absolutely progress being made. We just don't know if we can assign it exactly to these negotiations.
So to follow up, we know that North Korea wants to see, quote unquote, corresponding measures from the U.S. before it denuclearizes. What are those?
Well, I imagine that North Korea would want as a maximum amount of denuclearization from the United States, whether it be submarine-launched ballistic missiles that are off the coast in Southeast Asia or Northeast Asia.
Oh, they're funny.
I imagine that they would want to see a reduction in American forces in South Korea. I think they'll ask for the moon. But the question is, how do you then get
North
to a
Koreans
point where you can agree on certain things? The United States would like over time to have verifiable.
See, it don't work like that. We ask you to denuclearize. You don't ask us.
Look at the stockpiles within North Korea. Reporting from North Koreans on where those stockpiles are, where those weapons are being developed, and where they're currently being housed. So both parties want a lot, and the negotiation process and ideally, the summit process that is going to come out of these negotiations will get down to more specifics than the original sort of memorandum of understanding that came out of the Singapore summit.
Well, the State Department said Sunday Kim Jong-un offered to allow international inspectors into a nuclear test site dismantled in May. But there was no mention of the country's main nuclear facility, Yongbyon. So how do we measure progress with North Korea? Is it a situation where a little bit is better than nothing?
I think a little bit is always better than nothing, right? And
I was about to say that. A little bit is always better.
This conversation, this dialogue at the highest levels. I mean, Secretary Pompeo, with the chairman of North Korea, is significant because they are able to bypass the middlemen and others who have interest in not or in trying to stall or alter the types of progress that may be made in a diplomatic negotiation. We don't know what he's giving away. We don't know what the president is willing to give away in the negotiation process. But yes, there are ways. So first of all, the talks are progress. Secondly, we know that there is this Yongbyon, as you've mentioned, agreement to actually dismantle the plant. It's a nuclear facility in North Korea, and they've agreed to do this. Maybe it's the South Koreans checking whether or not they're doing it. Perhaps it's an international team. I'm sure the Russians want to get in there. They're making noises about wanting to participate in some way in this negotiation. So it's fluid. And as we know, they're not sharing. So we have to guess to some degree.
So Secretary Pompeo said Sunday it is inevitable that North Korea would talk to its Chinese neighbors. How is China playing a role in U.S.-North Korea relations?
Well, that's a really important question, Elaine, because we don't know how the Chinese leadership is reacting to the types of things that the United States is currently doing. That includes the tariffs, first and foremost. And this week, as we heard, Vice President Pence had a very, very hard speech aimed at the Chinese leadership and suggesting that they're interfering in our elections. So what's unclear is to what degree does China have influence over Kim Jong-un right now? And to what degree can they stop the negotiation or even reverse the negotiation if they want to as a means of extending the negotiation that they're having with the United States? That is an unknown, but that is really critical, and you're right to ask that question.
Finally, Marcos, what's next? How soon should we expect a second summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un?
Oh, yes.
Well, if it were up to President Trump, he'd probably do it on November 5th, the day before the election, to try and take as much of the credit and as much of the attention of everyone right before the midterm elections. I don't think that's going to happen, but who knows? And we don't even know where this next summit will be. So it'll be somewhere. But I think what we can count on is once this long or short negotiation process comes to its conclusion, it will eventually end up in the Oval Office or somewhere at the White House if there is something like a peace treaty being signed or a real verifiable denuclearization agreement that is something that we can make sure is going to stick. then you'll probably see President Trump bringing Kim Jong-un to Washington, D.C.
Right, November 5th. I better clear my calendar just in case. Marcos Kounalakis,
Kim
thank you so
Jong-un,
much.
Washington, D.C. You heard it here first, guys.
Marching through the streets of Washington, D.C.
You ready for that? Fucking North Koreans in Washington, D.C. That'd be crazy. That'd be like never happened in U.S. history. That'd be crazy. Okay, so we're moving right on. Did you guys hear about that? That what was that guy? Was he I forget. He was a journalist that Saudi Arabia killed. Is that may have killed, may have kidnapped or removed? Nobody's really sure what happened, but apparently this guy went into a Saudi Arabian consulate in Turkey, in I think was it Istanbul? Yeah. I'm not 100%. They'll say.
People watched him go in, but nobody saw him come out.
Yeah, and so I grabbed a couple short clips about that. I think the second clip reiterates some of the stuff that the first clip talks about, but they're two different news agencies, so we're gonna kind of play them both against each other here. So let's start with the first one.
Round one, fight.
Britain is calling on Saudi Arabia to provide urgent answers over the disappearance of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, who's not been seen since visiting the Saudi consulate in Istanbul 8 days ago. This CCTV picture showing Khashoggi entering the consulate on Tuesday, the 2nd of October, is the last trace of him alive. Turkish authorities say they believe he was murdered inside. Yesterday, Britain's Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt added his voice to the international calls for Riyadh to come up with an explanation.
With a door with two swords on it.
Just met the Saudi ambassador to seek urgent answers over Jamal Khashoggi. Violence against journalists worldwide is going up and is a grave threat to freedom of expression. If media reports prove correct, we will treat the incident seriously. Friendships depend on shared values.
It's definitely a normal thing for Saudi Arabia.
I'm joined now by the journalist Emily Wither, who is covering this story for Reuters in Istanbul. Good morning, Emily. The Turkish so far are leading the investigation into all of this. Where have they got to?
My living room.
We know that Turkish officials have asked to search inside the consulate. We don't think that they have done that yet. And at the moment, we know that they are trying to examine that CCTV footage. As you mentioned there, we only have that one still image of him walking into the consulate. What we don't have is him walking out. And this is an area that is full of cameras. It's a consulate. You only have to go down there to see that there are cameras all over the top of the building and along the streets. And so we know that the Turks are actively trying to look at that CCTV
Wonder how many Saudi Arabian intelligence officers are in that building.
So it may be that they are further along in the investigation that they have said publicly, but at the moment they say that they just want to search the consulate.
And there are reports that the Turkish are also looking into flight movements, some Saudi jets, potentially unusual flight movements. Can you tell us a bit more about that as well?
That's right. So the investigation is also now focusing quite heavily on this Saudi 15. They believe that 15 Saudi nationals arrived by 2 planes from Saudi Arabia. We can see on the flight tracker that 2 private-owned planes arrived in Istanbul on the day that Jamal Khashoggi disappeared inside the consulate. Now, industry sources have told us that these planes are owned by the Saudi government. We know that these 15 individuals went inside the consulate at the same time that Jamal had his appointment to pick up his paperwork. They left after a couple of hours and they went directly to the airport. And Turkish officials are now trying to find out about exactly who this group was and if they have any involvement in Jamal's disappearance.
Did Jamal Khashoggi solve?
Okay. So that's where we're at right now. I believe the story is that the working theory is that they think that he was removed from the consulate out the back door into one of 2 black SUVs. So what purpose? I'm not entirely sure. I still don't know what the reason that they decided to kill him was, but if they killed him, let's just say alleged. Like, what does he know, right? But keep in mind, and this is kind of common knowledge, so don't think I'm crazy or nothing. But diplomatic buildings like that, diplomatic positions are used as cover frequently by intelligence agencies all the world over.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
if you wanted to find a Saudi Arabian spy, that's the place to find them. Just saying.
In before stream drop.
Yeah, right.
All right. So what? You setting up this next flip, or is it same thing?
Let's just go straight into it. It's still the Saudi Arabian stuff. I think they have some other stuff to talk about. This is American news media versus European news media, by the way.
All right, come on, Richard Engel, show us how the Americans do it.
Did Jamal Khashoggi solve his own murder? In a new statement today, Saudi Arabia again denied killing the journalist, but it has yet to provide any evidence showing that he left the Saudi consulate here in Istanbul alive. Turkey says it has graphic recordings that prove 15 Saudi agents murdered journalist Jamal Khashoggi inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Recordings President Trump addressed
him walking. We've all heard a lot about the audio. Nobody's seen it yet. We're going to be seeing it very soon.
Yeah.
But President Trump made it clear
I think
what he doesn't want to happen.
Down. A lot of security cameras have terrible resolution.
A multi-billion-dollar Saudi arms deal.
I actually think we'd be punishing ourselves if we did that. There are other things we can do that are very, very powerful, very strong, and we'll do that.
Turkish officials insist the recordings are specific and damning, and they're convinced that the Saudi hit team flew into Istanbul, abused, killed, and dismembered Khashoggi, then headed back to the airport. But now there's a new twist on this story. A pro-government newspaper in this country is reporting that when Khashoggi walked into the Saudi consulate, he was wearing an Apple Watch synced to a phone here outside, and that the watch was recording. So he was able to secretly record his own torture and death. So perhaps Khashoggi outwitted his assassins and recorded them in the act. But that doesn't answer a key question.
Kind of makes you wonder,
Where is Khashoggi's body? 2 chartered Saudi planes left Istanbul the day he went missing. Only one was searched. Richard Engel,
trying to feed us
NBC
conspiracy
News,
theories or
Istanbul.
something, man. Hey, NBC.
I know, right?
I mean, that whole thing was based off of, like, evidence gathered from, non-professional sources and all that, and...
Well, if you think about it, it's almost like they're pushing a conspiracy theory because they don't like that the U.S. has a relationship with Saudi Arabia. Huh.
Yeah, and especially with all the things going on in Yemen.
It's almost like they tried to shame Trump into, not doing any more arms deals with Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, especially after that last one.
Yeah, right. But that's pretty much where we're at with this. Nobody knows a damn thing other than he went in and he hasn't come out. The Apple Watch story seems like it's pretty thin because it's only being reported by one paper. It's not corroborated, and then nobody's seen the evidence yet. But we'll see. We're going to keep an eye on this. It's a big, big news story. This is currently developing. The entire world is paying attention. So I'm sure we'll get some answer.
Watch, it turns out he's not even dead.
I know. I'm waiting for the answer, but I don't think it's going to come.
Turns out he faked his death purposely. Some shit like that. Who knows?
So I checked up on Yemen. Yemen is one of our normal haunts. Still, the war is going on. Nothing really new over there. Just a lot of human tragedy. Lots of human tragedy. So I thought that we would look at a different human tragedy and see what's going on with the battle for Idlib in Syria, because that's actually been heating up while we've been gone, and we reported on that right when it got started. So let's see how they've been doing over there, huh?
This is Idlib in northwest Syria, home to 3 million people and the last rebel-held stronghold of the Syrian conflict.
How much did that graphic cost?
It could now become the stage for the biggest and the bloodiest battle of the war. Syrian government forces backed by Russian air power are massing on the province's border. Their aim? To put an end to a 7-year war that's cost up to 500,000 lives.
Hey, am I watching news or am I watching a Warhammer video?
Rebel fighters, as many as a third of whom are Islamist extremists, some linked to Al-Qaeda. But the Syrian regime claims that all those opposing them with guns are terrorists. President Bashar al-Assad, that's the president of Syria, has long pledged to take back every inch of the country from rebel forces.
I'll be right back.
If he takes Idlib, he'll more or less have done that. But victory for him could mean catastrophe for the nearly 3 million civilians in Idlib. They face being bombed, besieged and starved over what could be many months of fighting. Around half of them are civilians from other formerly rebel-held areas of Syria, but this time they'll have nowhere left to flee.
Hi guys.
Their only potential escape is to Turkey, just to the north of Idlib, but its borders are currently closed. The roots of the Syrian war lie in the wave of pro-democracy protests known as the Arab Spring, which swept across North Africa in early 2011. These popular uprisings removed several of the region's long-serving strongmen from power. The clamour for change then spread to Syria, where the Assad family has ruled for decades. When President Assad's security forces violently crushed largely peaceful calls for change, his opponents took up arms and demanded his removal from power.
To a video game or
and
some
killing
shit.
hasn't
Like it's
stopped
setting
since
us up
then.
like to drop us just
But
right into the middle
there's
of it.
hope. In September, Russia and Turkey agreed on a plan to prevent, or at least postpone, the coming carnage. It involves the creation of what's being called a buffer zone between the two sides. Under the deal, rebels must remove their heavy weapons from the zone, and all the jihadist fighters have to leave the 10 to 12 miles deep kind of no man's land. But a couple of extremist rebel groups have refused to go, and previous attempts to prevent fighting elsewhere in Syria have failed. Another problem is the sheer number of armies and military groups involved in the fighting in Syria. Take the rebels, for instance. Most moderate factions gather under the name of the Free Syrian Army, or FSA. Then there's the variety of Islamist extremist groups, the largest of which is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which has around 10,000 to 12,000 fighters. As if that wasn't enough to deal with, there's also the international dimension to it all, and this might really make your head spin. Russia and several mostly Shia Muslim-majority nations, such as Iran and Iraq, along with the Lebanese militia Hezbollah, support President Assad, while some Sunni Muslim-majority countries like Turkey, Saudi Arabia and
it's going to
Qatar
be such a
support many
complicated
of the rebel
conflict.
groups. Then there's the United States, which backs the Kurdish YPG forces, who hold
Yeah, I was just
land
saying, I feel
to
like
the
I'm being
northeast
set up
of
to play a
Idlib.
video game right
Yet
now.
Turkey, a fellow NATO member with the US, insists that the YPG are terrorists. Turkey, which now has a dozen military bases in Idlib, has the unenviable job of persuading reluctant extremist groups to leave the buffer zone. It's in its interest to succeed. Turkey has already taken in more than 3 million Syrian refugees and is desperate to avoid hundreds of thousands more spilling over its borders if the ceasefire deal fails. The West will also be worried. If Turkey refuses to absorb yet another wave of migrants, Idlib's troubles could soon be Europe's too.
What?
But Syria is gonna make us World War III, guys.
If we keep destroying shit, there's gonna be more fucking people to go places.
Oh, they're gonna want to go everywhere. Oh, why did we open our borders? Oh.
Notice all the red areas are all the areas that were in conflict during World War II. It's almost like it's coincidental, guys. Shit.
Oh, like maybe these
It's not
things
like
aren't
it's a
on a
repeat or anything.
cyclical pattern of things. Oh, sad.
Yeah,
Lovely.
I apologize, by the way. I had to mute myself for a second. I have never been interrupted while podcasting before on the mobile, but someone just walked up and decided to have a conversation.
No, it's cool. Yeah, man, it happens. Oh, by the way, if anybody's getting any buffering or anything like that on the other end, sorry about that. We've switched to a new internet service provider, reluctantly, and we're going over Wi-Fi instead of direct connection, so, yeah.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah, it's still working okay. We're still in the green across the board for right now, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll be all right. If in worst case scenario, we can always pause while it buffers or whatever. Okay, so we're getting out of the Middle East because we've seen somebody tragedy there, and there is so much going on. Seriously, though, Syria, seriously. So we've been kind of keeping an eye out on the political situation in Europe, and Europe's many different countries, but some of the ones that have been, popping up lately in the news are France and Italy. So I figured we would take a look at Italy real quick. They've been having an ongoing struggle with the rest of Europe over migrant quotas and accepting migrant votes and stuff. They recently passed a new piece of law that basically allows them more latitude to deny migrants entry into the country. So I figured we'd watch that little clip and get everyone caught up.
Months of hardline stances on immigration are one step closer to being enshrined into Italian law. On Monday, the Italian government unanimously adopted a singular decree which tightens both anti-terrorism and immigration legislation. The bill makes it easier to expel migrants and strip them of Italian citizenship.
I do not consider it absurd, quite the opposite, to withdraw nationality from those who have acquired it and afterwards are convicted following a final sentence for crimes concerning international terrorism. I believe it is a measure of extreme good sense.
The bill permits authorities to suspend the asylum requests of those considered, quote, socially dangerous or convicted of certain crimes, even if an appeal is ongoing. It also sets stricter criteria for granting humanitarian protection, which is a lower level of asylum rooted in Italian rather than in international law. Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte said the decree was compatible both with international conventions and with the guarantees of the Italian constitution.
Within a framework of absolute guarantee of the fundamental rights of people, within a framework of international conventions to which Italy adheres, we are reordering and revising legislation to make it more effective.
The Italian parliament has 60 days to vote the bill into law.
There we go. See if it makes it.
Oh, we'll find out.
So we also covered a while back the, I don't know if you guys remember this, a while ago, the Macron bodyguard scandal. Not his lover. Not his lover.
Not
his lover. And apparently not his bodyguard either.
Wait, what?
Well, it's not even his lover.
Thanks, Norm. All right, hit it.
It all started here, with a man in a police helmet beating up protesters at the traditional May Day rally in Paris.
Like he's beating the shit out of him.
The man walking away is Alexandre Benalla, who was at the time an aide to none other than President Emmanuel Macron. The president's chief of staff had granted authorization to Benalla to go and observe the protest alongside police. After finding out about the video, Macron's chief of staff wrote this letter to him.
Your behaviour has damaged the exemplarity that is expected at all times from agents working with the office of the president. As a consequence, I have decided to suspend you from your duties for 15 days, starting on the 4th of May 2018.
Suspended, but not fired. This with full pay. The presidential palace also reportedly demoted the employee. Over 2.5 months after the incident, Le Monde identified the supposed author of police brutality as a presidential aide in disguise. 2 days after the explosive article, the Élysée Palace fired Benalla. By the end of the week, he was placed under formal investigation for assault, interference with police work and impersonation of a police officer. On July 23rd, Parliament started a public hearing on the scandal, and the government was forced to suspend debate on a constitutional reform bill while it handled the fallout. It wasn't until 8 days after the revelations that Macron broke his silence on the incident. He said it was a disappointment, but that his staff were not involved in a cover-up.
It's all just a storm in a teacup.
On July 26th, Benalla's first interview since the scandal was published in Le Monde. In it, he said that the two people he was filmed beating up were acting hysterically.
It was urban guerrilla warfare. People were wearing masks, giving the finger.
Fingering each other.
The parliamentary hearing at the end of July didn't amount to anything. But Wednesday's commission, organised by the Senate, where Macron doesn't hold a majority, is likely to be a different story. Last week, Benalla said he would refuse to attend, but he later changed his mind, saying he'd been threatened with further legal action if he didn't appear. The commission could take up to 6 months.
Jesus.
I fought in your general direction.
Woo, man, that's gonna take a while. 6 months to get there.
Oh man.
Okay. So that's how that's shaping up. Notice that they also are trying to. The timeline's kind of changing on us too. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Like before, they were reporting that he didn't get fired till the police came to arrest him. Do you remember?
Yes.
And now they're reporting that he got fired beforehand.
Oh
it's
man, it's
weird.
like they're trying to Bernstein bear us or something. Or what's that?
I know.
What's that word?
Oh crap! We're gonna have a talk. We're gonna lecture people about the Mandela effect.
Oh god.
Let's change. Oh, here we go. Let's change gears. We're gonna be the esoteric podcast now. We're gonna show you no proof and just assume everything correctly all the time. And if you argue with us, we're gonna shout you down because you're obviously a shill.
It's something like Chad.
I spent a good amount of time today pushing for round space.
Round space. Yeah. You ever think that you guys ever notice that Jolly Ranchers look like Tootsie Rolls? By the way.
Yeah. Like they probably just use the same mold. Inject and mold just different thing in there, you know, that's what they do. Jolly Rancher.
Oh my god, it's a conspiracy.
Alright, so
bunch of gay farmers.
F-35. Big deal for a lot of years. We've had a lot of problems with the F-35 project. A lot of people don't want to admit it, but a lot of people will come out and say that, it cost a shitload of money. Well, F-35s. Yeah. The F-35s around the world have been grounded. Our entire F-35 fleet is on the fucking floor of the hangar.
What the fuck?
Why? Why, you asked? Well, the only MSM news outlet that I was able to find a clip from was, oddly enough, RT.
Thanks, RT.
Well, it seems that the Air Force just cannot get a break when it comes to their fighter jets. Last week, we told you about mechanical problems with the Air Force's most expensive and fearsome dogfighter, the F-22. After pilots were reporting dizziness, a medical report found antifreeze, propane, and burned synthetic oil in their bloodstreams. You add to that rust, navigational problems, and the F-22 has been grounded until further notice. Well, now the cousin of the F-22, the F-35, they've been grounded as well. Lockheed Martin's other aviation project has reported electrical and engine problems during ground testing. And it's quite the contrast to all the lavish praise, all the boastful commentary that Lockheed has been spewing all over town about the 35s. And this isn't even the first time the engine problems have surfaced in the development phase. Far from it, in fact.
Yep.
4 engine malfunctions have been recorded all the way back to May of 2007. And even spending-happy politicians have been skeptical of the mass production of those fighter jets. Now, as of now, 20 F-35s have reached flying status. But until all of the glitches are worked out, the Air Force says that the planes aren't moving. Now, it's not exactly the finest moment for the Joint Strike Fighter program. The F-35 has been designed to be second only to the F-22, and as of now, both of those jets are facing serious problems. They're not even flying. Oh, and let's not forget, these two jets are considered the future of our Air Force. Now, of course, the Pentagon has already dropped hundreds of millions of dollars on the production for the 22s and the 35s. And yes, the F-35s are quite the investment at $90 million apiece. And the DoD wants to buy 2,400 more of them for a total price of $382 billion.
Kind of feels
but then,
like
wait a
being
minute.
chewed out.
When you add in maintenance figures, the total estimated cost of the F-35s comes to
Russia
$1
trying to tell us, don't buy more F-22s.
And yes, with a T, trillion. So there you have it, folks. The most expensive military project in history, and it doesn't even work. It's just the latest disgusting example of wasteful defense spending.
See, they're trying to give the Democrats ammunition for the next election is what they're doing.
You spent $1 million to make a pen that works in space.
It's very interesting that this is happening at the time that it's happening. Because at the same time this is happening, the reality of the new big hack is hitting us. Did you hear about the latest Google hack?
Bigger hack. Larger and better.
Oh yeah, it's like 29 million accounts are being affected, or some ungodly number like that.
That's nice. It was that Google. Was that the Google hack or the Facebook hack?
I know Facebook had a big hack. We'll have to watch the clip, but I know Facebook had a big one recently. But Google had one recently that they did not report until just last week, and it was, I think it's 6 months old.
You're getting hacked, and you're getting hacked. Everybody's getting hacked.
Well, here's the interesting thing, right? So this story centers around Chinese electronic parts. So we're talking about little microprocessor and, little tiny chips that are on PCBs the world over. So maybe Lockheed Martin didn't check the sourcing for their product.
How can you find something so small? Something so large without a magnifying glass.
Let's watch this and keep in mind while we're watching this clip that in the last clip they said that the F-35s are also having electrical problems, but they would not say of what nature.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. A new report this morning saying that China used tiny chips in a hack that infiltrated U.S. businesses, including Amazon and Apple. Brian Sullivan joins us this morning. He's got the details. Brian.
This is, Andrew, maybe the weirdest story of the week, weirdest story of the year. Bloomberg Business Week story, a major cover piece here that Apple and Amazon are strongly denying. But let's get to the facts of the matter. It's a bit complicated, guys, so I'll just talk a little bit. You can ask me questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. It's how TV works sometimes, which is this, that according to the Bloomberg Business Week deeply researched study, 6 former and current government insiders confirmed that a tiny, like the tip of a pencil microchip was found on servers built by a Chinese-owned company that builds servers for data farms owned by Amazon, Apple, and many others, ostensibly to steal any sensitive information that may be coming through that server farm, because one of the companies that is involved is called Elemental. It was bought by Amazon back in 2015, and what Elemental does is compress video for Amazon Prime, but what it also does is help compress video for things like CIA drone footage and other government video surveillance. Now, Apple, Amazon, and others have all come out strongly denying this. I'll read you the Apple one. Apple just not moments ago, about an hour ago, came out and said, quote, "We are deeply disappointed that in their dealings with us, Bloomberg's reporters may not have been open to the possibility that they or their sources may have been wrong or misinformed. Amazon says it's untrue that Amazon Web Services knew about a supply chain compromise, an issue with malicious chips or hardware modifications when acquiring that company, Elemental, which is the one that I mentioned." So, guys, it's very complicated, but according to the story, 6 people said that they had found a tiny little alteration on a motherboard built by a Chinese-owned company that goes into Apple and Amazon and other types of server products that may have been used to steal information.
Hey, Bri, just to your point, you started reading that Apple denial, and I think the other half of that denial that they issued is interesting as well. They say our best guess is that they are confusing their story with a previously reported 2016 incident in which we discovered an infected driver on a single super micro server in one of our labs. That one-time event was determined to be accidental and not a targeted attack against Apple. But, I mean, you don't often hear that many details when you have a denial issued or something that refutes a story.
Yeah, and it's a great point. I mean, here's the thing. So apparently Apple finds in 2015 that one motherboard of one server had a bad microchip or some sort of alteration to a microchip which shouldn't have been there. But listen, Bloomberg coming out with a cover story in Business Week. It's a feature piece. They're citing 6 former and current officials inside the government and inside some of these companies saying that this was indeed found. It's a very bizarre story.
Brian, do we have any idea of the extent of the kind of information and data that this would give them access to in a meaningful way?
We don't. But when you talk about this elemental, as I mentioned, Andrew, they talk about video streaming from drones. They talk about government surveillance videos, not just Amazon Prime and the Jack Ryan show. It's also sensitive government. Remember, Amazon Web Services has a massive government business. They currently do. They would like more government business. So I think the implication, especially as now we frame it in the whole Donald Trump versus China with trade. Remember, computer motherboards and servers are one of the things that the administration had been talking about, getting more manufacturing done here. 90% of all computer products, the hardware, is made in China. If there's a fear about government interdiction and intervention, putting up microchips that are
now. Pause that shit. 90%. 90 fucking percent. 90%. 90. I broke.
Okay,
I broke.
Speak
I need to reboot.
actual words. Speak actual words. Don't become the robot.
90%.
Don't become the robot. 90%
Oh
what?
my god. Yeah, dude, 90% of all consumer electronics made in China. What did we just hear about last year? All Intel CPUs, backdoors, made in China.
Yep.
I mean, come on, guys. Like, at what point are you just going to stop sourcing this stuff? I mean, the next, we'll see in the next story, but the next story directly ties into this story. So let's keep watching, because this guy is just, man, he is just shoveling red pills out.
Let's just keep the thread going. Come on.
Infected to be able to steal information, you're going to ramp up this trade war to an entirely another national security level. But Apple and Amazon are out with strong denials. I mean, Andrew, listen, you've written books, you write articles. I mean, to come out with a story that is so strongly denied, you better be doggone, I almost use a different word, doggone sure you're sourcing, right?
The one thing that I don't understand about this piece, and I did try to go through it a bit, is given the denials, you would have imagined, and the denials now, I mean, it sounds like there were denials then, but you would have imagined that those denials would have been strong before the article came out as well. And so clearly you have to think that the reporters who wrote this felt that those denials were untrue.
Yeah, it's to your. That's the point. I mean, if you're the Bloomberg reporters, and Bloomberg's a major news organization. I worked there for 13 years. If you're a Bloomberg reporter and you go to your editors and say, I got this story, I got 6 government insiders, former and current, who are saying this happened, but the companies say it didn't, you better be doggone sure that your sourcing is good, because I have never seen Apple come out with a denial sort of this magnitude. Amazon, which, by the way, barely comments on the fact that they exist as a corporation, coming out and making comments saying that it's untrue they knew about a compromise. So I guess if you parse the Amazon, if you parsed, Becky, the Amazon denial, it's untrue that Amazon Web Services knew about a supply chain compromise.
But they're not saying it didn't exist.
Yeah, it's like, you what are we going to do, become word detectives, I guess? It's a really bizarre story. And by the way, if it is true, if it is true, think of the implications. That China has put a malicious tiny microchip on a server that is designed to process our information, corporate information, and sensitive government information, ostensibly to steal that information. If that is accurate, if the story is right, the long-term implications for China, for manufacturing, for the trade conversation, and for everything else in between, I think, to my hero Ron Burgundy said, takes it up a notch.
Ron Burgundy.
Let's get.
Did he just become a reporter or something, or?
No, but that's pretty funny.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
So, before we go on to the next video, I just want to say, when you live in a society that is technologically behind and you want to advance very quickly, the best way to do that is through espionage. The best way. So steal the technologies of your enemies and your competitors. China has made this into a bit of a professional sport, as it were. If you listen to people like Mike Baker, who owns Diligence LLC, if you listen to just the news, these guys talking about markets, and you can see the world over where China kind of goes to different companies and steals like the next big tech. A number of years ago, they actually stole a design for a wave generator from a German company when their president came to visit. They stole. I mean, that's just the way they work. The Chinese are all about corporate espionage. So this story, as much as MSM doesn't want to admit it, and Amazon and Apple want to bury it, very plausible. Very, very plausible. So keep that in mind going into the next story.
Jumping straight in.
Let's get to Jerry Willis on the floor of the NYSE with the latest. Jerry.
Liz, that's
right.
Yeah,
this was the day the Dow
worst
fell.
Start for a quarter since 2008, and for all three major indexes. Think about that. The worst start to a quarter since 2008. The financial crisis. Let's take a look at these numbers. The Dow, its intraday swing today, 848 points. Only 11 of those points were positive. Just as an example here, these two other indexes never had a positive move all day long. The Nasdaq ending down 4%, the S&P 500 ending down 3%. These are big intraday moves. The Dow's worst performers tell a story here. Nike, Microsoft, Boeing. This is how broad the sell-off was. Nike, a consumer stock, Microsoft technology, Boeing, an industrial stock. You can see sell-offs in all major indexes. Meanwhile, tech stocks, as you said earlier, Liz, leading this sell-off. Amazon down 10%, now in bear market territory.
Man,
Netflix
Amazon, it's almost like they got
Google
hit
down
for the
5%.
fucking Chinese shit.
The FANG stocks have been defanged today. We saw a major sell-off in technology stocks. They were the ones that have been leading this market higher. We now see that they are vulnerable as well.
When I was going through and researching for the show today,
the worst start
I found
to
a ton of clips when I was looking at this story.
2008. It's got everybody just a little bit nervous. We'll have to wait and see what comes tomorrow.
Every one of these news networks, including Fox News, that was talking about stocks and the stock market and wanting to invest in, guess what they told you to buy?
Tech stocks?
Yup.
Well,
said buy tech stocks. Buy them so that you can lose all your fucking money. From what I've heard from other people, that it just seems like it was just a massive sell-off, and then people just started falling like lemmings. So we're just in a bear market right now. We'll be okay. It'll get back to a bull market, soon. It'll be all right. So we're pretty much out of that realm. But something else big happened while we were gone. Did you guys catch any of the Kavanaugh hearings?
Who didn't? Who did not?
Well,
it's a better question.
Well, we didn't because we weren't here, guys.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
So just to start us off, and it's kind of a longer clip, so we may cut it short a little bit. We have basically a highlight reel from the New York Times of key moments, they say, during the Blasey Ford hearing. And then I thought it might be interesting to see the much lauded Lindsey Graham rant.
I just really wish we had copyright to cover the Benny Hill theme song for this one. I'm just saying.
Oh my God.
I'm just saying that'd be so amazing right now.
I am here because I believe it is my civic duty. This confirmation process has become a national disgrace.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the testimony you're about to give before the committee will be the truth?
Early in the evening, I went up a very narrow set of stairs.
So think about this. They literally just said Christine Blasey Ford and the man who she accused of sexually assaulting her. Not this is a Kavanaugh hearing and she's testifying. No. This is her hearing. And how dare her rapist be there?
How dare he?
Stairs leading from the living room to a second floor to use the restroom. When I got to the top of the stairs, I was pushed from behind into a bedroom across from the bathroom. I couldn't see who pushed me. Brett and Mark came into the bedroom and locked the door behind them. There was music playing in the bedroom.
Got a Mike
It was
Pence
turned up
blowing back there
louder
in the
by
back.
either Brett or Mark once we were in the room.
Crap.
I was pushed
He
onto
really
the
is a time
bed,
traveler.
and Brett got on top of me. He began running his hands over my body and grinding into me. I believed he was going to rape me. I tried to yell for help. When I did, Brett put his hand over my mouth to stop me from yelling. This is what terrified me the most and has had the most lasting impact on my life. It was hard for me to breathe.
Someone had
And I thought that Brett was accidentally going to kill me.
Dr. Ford, with what degree of certainty do you believe Brett Kavanaugh assaulted you?
100%.
100%.
What is the strongest memory you have?
My penis.
Indelible in the hippocampus is the laughter. The uproarious laughter between the two.
Hold on, pause that. Did she say indelible in the hippocampus?
Yeah. Yeah, she did.
Okay.
Okay.
And they're having fun at my expense.
You've never forgotten that laughter. You've never forgotten them laughing at you.
I was,
gonna laugh at you.
Underneath one of them while the two laughed. Two friends having a really good time with one another.
Are you aware that the three people at the party besides yourself and Brett Kavanaugh have given statements under penalty of felony to the committee?
Yes.
And are you aware of what those statements say?
Yes.
Are you aware that they say that they have no memory or knowledge of such a party?
I don't expect that PJ and Leland would remember this evening. It was a very unremarkable party. It was not one of their more notorious parties because nothing remarkable happened to them that evening. They were downstairs. And Mr. Judge is a different story. I would expect that he would remember that this happened.
I categorically and unequivocally deny the allegation against me by Dr. Ford. This whole 2-week effort has been a calculated and orchestrated political hit, fueled with apparent pent-up anger about President Trump, the 2016 election.
Kavanaugh's angry face is not a good angry face.
Unfairly stoked about my
Yeah,
judicial
he looks
record.
constipated or something.
Revenge on behalf
You're
of
like
the
an
Clintons.
angry baby or something,
Millions
right?
of dollars in money from outside left-wing
Like,
opposition
let me just put you like this. Like, Brett Kavanaugh, I think he's a great option for the Supreme Court. But goddamn, that face, that is not like the face of a president. Like, it looks like the face of a good man and everything, but holy shit, I want to play poker with that guy.
Right.
What I think is really interesting here is that he said that this was a hit job on behalf of the Clintons while under oth. And they had the FBI investigate, to make sure that he wasn't doing perjury. Yeah, because
that's
lying there,
pretty interesting too,
himself.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
The other thing that's interesting is after he came out and said that, every single news media outlet was like, "Oh, he's a conspiracy theorist. We can't have him on the court."
Did they?
Yeah, they did. They started attacking him for having his conspiracy theories are toxic to the judicial process, is what they were saying.
Well, they checked him for perjury, so.
Yeah, exactly. And then they tried to attack his decisions by saying that his decisions weren't his. Let's go ahead and watch the end of this circus, man.
The other night, Ashley and my daughter Liza said their prayers. And little Liza, all of 10 years old,
woo! Red Baron's back.
Said to Ashley, we should pray for the woman.
Was there ever a time when you drank so much that you couldn't remember what happened or part of what happened the night before?
No, I remember what happened, and I think you've probably had beers, Senator, and
So you're saying there's never been a case where you drank so much that you didn't remember what happened the night before or part of what happened?
You're asking about, blackout. I don't know. Have you?
Could you answer the question, Judge? That's not happened. Is that your answer?
Yeah, and I'm curious if you have.
I have no drinking problem, Judge.
Yeah, nor do I.
Okay, thank you.
In your yearbook, you talked about drinking.
There we go. I love the yearbook stuff. Look, okay. There we go.
Senator,
There's the yearbook pictures.
Let me take a step back and explain high school. I was number one in the class. No. You got this up. I'm gonna talk about my high school. No. I'm gonna
let him answer.
I'm gonna talk about my high school record. If you're gonna sit here and mock me,
You said, "I welcome any kind of investigation." I quote you. I welcome any kind of investigation.
I welcome whatever the committee wants to do because I'm telling the truth.
I want to know what you want to do.
I'm telling the truth.
I want to know what you want to do, Judge.
I'm innocent. I'm innocent of this charge.
You're prepared for an FBI investigation?
They don't reach conclusions. You reach the conclusion,
No,
Senator.
but they do investigate questions.
If you wanted an FBI investigation, you could have come to us. What you want to do is destroy this guy's
Hey,
life,
go ahead and pause
hold this seat open.
We've got this on the next one. Let's go ahead and skip to the next video because we got this covered by Fox News, and they really like to talk about Lindsay, so let's let them.
All right, let's see the Ninja Turtle in action.
Are you aware that at 9:23 on the night of July the 9th, the day you were nominated to the Supreme Court by President Trump, Senator Schumer said, 23 minutes after your nomination, "I will oppose
23.
Judge Kavanaugh's nomination with everything I have. I have a bipartisan, and I hope a bipartisan majority will do the same. The stakes are simply too high for anything less." Well, if you weren't aware of it, you are now. Did you meet with Senator Dianne Feinstein on August 20th?
I did meet with Senator Feinstein.
Did you know that her staff had already recommended a lawyer to Dr. Ford?
I did not know that.
Did you know that her and her staff had this allegations for over 20 days?
I did not know that at the time.
If you wanted an FBI investigation, you could have come to us. What you want to do is destroy this guy's life, hold this seat open, and hope you win in 2020. You've said that, not me. You've got nothing to apologize for. When you see Sotomayor and Kagan, tell them that Lindsay said hello, because I voted for them. I would never do to them what you've done to this guy. This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. And if you really wanted to know the truth, you sure as hell wouldn't have done what you've done to this guy. Are you a gang rapist?
No.
I cannot imagine what you and your family have gone through. Boy, y'all want power. God, I hope you never get it. I hope the American people can see through this sham, that you knew about it and you held it. You had no intention of protecting Dr. Ford. None. She's as much of a victim as you are. God, I hate to say it because these have been my friends. But let me tell you, when it comes to this,
Keyword had.
You're looking for a fair process? You came to the wrong town at the wrong time, my friend. Do you consider this a job interview?
The advice and consent role is like a job
interview. You consider that you've been through a job interview?
I've been through a process of advice and consent under the Constitution.
Would you say you've been through hell?
I've been through hell and then some.
This is not a job interview.
Yeah.
This is hell.
This
is going to destroy the ability of good people to come forward because of this crap. Your high school yearbook. You have interacted with professional women all your life, not one accusation. You're supposed to be Bill Cosby when you're a junior and senior in high school. And all of a sudden you got over it. It's been my understanding that if you drug women and rape them for 2 years in high school, you probably don't stop. Here's my understanding. If you lived a good life,
people would recognize it, like the American Bar Association has the gold standard.
Yeah.
His integrity is absolutely unquestioned.
Yep.
He is very circumspect in his personal conduct.
They said they were going to.
No biases or
they said they were going to
He's
investigate, and they said they were upholding their good recommendation.
He is warm, friendly, unassuming. He's the nicest person. The ABA. The one thing I can tell you, you should be proud of, Ashley. You should be proud of this: that you raised a daughter who had the good character to pray for Dr. Ford. To my Republican colleagues, if you vote no, you're legitimizing the most despicable thing I have seen in my time in politics. You want this seat? I hope you never get it. I hope you're on the Supreme Court. That's exactly where you should be. And I hope that the American people will see through this charade.
Fantastic delivery by Lindsey Graham.
I intend to vote for you, and I hope everybody who's fair-minded
So,
very good.
Couple things to note about the Kavanaugh hearings. We actually, I was going to play an interesting clip from Nancy Pelosi. The clip, we don't have it today, unfortunately, because we're going to be moving on to better things shortly. But Nancy Pelosi actually, maybe I can find it. Let me look it up. Nancy Pelosi. Hold on.
Tonight's show is brought to you by Adrenochrome. Love that shit.
Nancy Pelosi.
Gross.
Here we go. I got one for you, boss. Can you add one last minute?
Yeah, sure. Load it
Did
up.
you get
Send
the
me link.
Eric Holder one?
What you got?
I got one for you. We're just gonna play this bitch.
You just pop it to the end of the list, or throwing it Yeah, just throw it in. Throw it there. So let me link that up, and then we'll get that up.
Okay, so I got that. That's the link, and then I'll add it to the playlist.
Demonize, and then
you don't really have to add it to the list or anything. I'll just blow this up, and then we'll just jump straight into this one. Why not?
All right, sounds good.
Okay, cool. All right, got your permission.
you demonize, and then we call it the wrap-up smear.
The wrap-up smear.
Wrap-up smear? Is that like a pap smear?
You call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it.
We need to know, are we about to put somebody on the United States Supreme Court who committed a sexual assault?
I believe the survivor. I believe the woman.
I just want to say to the men of this country, just shut up and step up.
And then you
Shut
write
up,
it,
but
and
step
see it's
up.
reported in the press that this, and this.
Be
So they
seen
have
and
that
not heard.
validation that the press reported the smear.
All that time he was out fooling around with his buddies. And we know what that means, and it doesn't mean what he says it means.
A woman says the president's U.S. Supreme Court nominee, Brett Kavanaugh, assaulted her when she and Kavanaugh were both in high school.
Merchandising
There's
it.
evidence suggesting to her that he was part of the gang rape.
And then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic.
We believe survivors! We believe survivors!
Anyway, who are you to talk about it? And tell all these women they don't know
Oh my god.
We don't know how to open the doors.
Poor psycho crazy people.
And yeah, we're all crazies. Lovely.
So how you like that? So basically, the idea is that you smear someone. Well, that was actually from Daily Caller. Ben Shapiro just tweeted about it, and Daily Caller picked it up and started doing stuff with it. But
I thought he's with Daily Caller.
no, he's Daily Wire. Different Daily.
Different Daily.
Yep.
Daily.
But what I will say is that they've done a pretty good job at this, but they failed. Like they failed miserably. Unfortunately, they took this route. Whether Christine Ford. Okay, let's break this down to its constituent parts. Okay, so innocent until proven guilty, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then also accusers have the assumption of being honest and truthful, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't assume they're lying.
Of course not.
So assuming assuming Christine Ford is correct, okay, they really just blew their shot to even approach a fucking impeachment process with Kavanaugh. Completely.
Yep.
Because she has completely rescinded her entire accusation.
Yeah,
like, she's not saying that she was false, but she's not going forward with it.
Wasn't it like a whole 25 minutes before he was actually confirmed or something? Like.
Yep.
That's kind of.
It's basically once they saw that it was going through, she rescinded her whole deal.
I'm just kidding. I just don't really care about it anymore. Okay, bye, guys.
Yep, exactly.
Where'd that come from?
Well, he's got a little valley girl inside of him.
Wow. Hey. All right. Okay. Now I have to talk like this. What the fuck?
For the rest of the podcast.
Could be worse. You could be sounding like this. You never know.
Oh,
be careful
boy.
what you wish for, man.
Oh yeah,
Well,
I love this voice
not
transformer.
happy.
I love this fucking thing.
Okay, so we pretty much covered Kavanaugh. We've got another justice on the court, so we may wind up getting 2 more by the end of this, man. Apparently, now I don't want to start any crazy rumors, but apparently, Justice Kagan has been tied to this whole fucking Kavanaugh, scandal uproar thing. So I imagine we're going to see more and more drama with the Supreme Court as Trump's term, goes on. Plus, any day now, they're going to stop claiming that Ruth Bader Ginsburg is not taxidermied, and then we're going to have to replace her. So that'll be
she's actually alive, is what you're saying?
I mean, that ain't no sawdust. I don't think.
Animatronics, man. Seriously.
Oh my god, the fucking videos of her workout.
Oh god, that was funny. That was so funny.
Disney's been perfecting animatronics for how many years now? I mean, come on.
I could have swore I thought that video of her working out, I thought that was a deep fake.
We're gonna need to find that. We're gonna need to find
where she bounces for a minute, like with her doctor or physical therapist or whatever. And I'm just like, I like looking at her face. I'm like, that face looks like a mask, but it's funny.
Oh wait, are we
right,
we're doing that the other clip that Political just threw up?
You can if you want to.
Is that the is that a GIF?
No, not the GIF. Although
one's a
man,
GIF,
that is a
but
bad
the
GIF.
Eric. The Eric Holder fucking kicking people is pretty funny.
Well,
that's funny. We'll roll with it next time.
All right. We'll jump in.
We only have a couple clips left to the back half. Well, we're actually on the back half of the show. We got 4 left. 4, I think.
Up around.
Okay.
Around the bend.
So, did you guys hear about the scare that the White House and the Pentagon had about a week ago?
About the rice-and-filled letters and all that stuff?
Yeah, and that whole story is kind of funny, too. Apparently it was an ex-Navy sailor that did it. And then there's some rumor right now that's circling that he might have sent castor beans instead of ricin.
Oh my god, like are you kidding, like from Breaking Bad?
No, I'm not kidding. Like, they straight up sent ricin. They tested positive for ricin.
Well, no, I know that.
There was a rumor for a while there, though, that the guy just sent the beans instead of the poison.
I see. Yeah, that bro's from fucking Utah, man. Fucking not even like an hour from me, faggot.
That's crazy.
Excuse my language.
Right.
Sorry, I used some French. My bad.
No, you're good. We're a mature show. I mean, we got the Red Baron. Come on now. We have to be able to show warfare. So let's go ahead and go into this next clip. We're going to talk about that. And then the clip that follows after is unrelated to the story. But since we're talking about Mattis, we're just going to roll right into that, too.
Fox News alert 3 separate envelopes suspected of containing
News
ricin,
alert.
which is an extremely deadly poison, were intercepted, and they were addressed to Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis, top Navy Admiral John Richardson, and even President Trump himself. Trace Gallagher, live in our West Coast newsroom with the very latest on this
Trace
tonight.
Gallagher.
Hi, Trace.
Hi, Martha. The Secret Service is now confirming the last letter was addressed to President Trump, but did not make it into the White House or near the White House. It was received and detected at a federal mail sorting facility yesterday, but the Secret Service will not tell us, at least yet, which facility that was. The letter did contain the very same substance as 2 letters sent to the Pentagon yesterday, and those letters tested positive for ricin. As you noted, the first letters were addressed to Defense Secretary James Mattis and Admiral John Richardson. He is the chief of naval operations. They were intercepted at a mail screening facility in the Pentagon compound, but the envelopes did not enter the main Pentagon building. Tonight, that mail facility remains under quarantine, and there is still no word yet if all 3 letters are connected, but they are being examined by FBI forensic teams.
Connected.
If you don't know, ricin is a naturally occurring substance that's found in castor beans, but it takes a deliberate and precise act to turn them into biological weapons. It can either be used in the form of a powder, a pellet, a mist, or acid, and it can be inhaled, injected, or ingested. Experts say within 36 to 48 hours it'll begin to shut down major organs. There is no antidote, but you should know it's not always fatal. And of course, children are more at risk than adults. Remember, in 2013, letters testing positive for ricin were addressed to a Mississippi senator, a Mississippi judge, and President Obama. All 3 envelopes were intercepted, and the man who sent that letter is now in prison. And of course, shortly after 9/11, letters containing anthrax were mailed to the offices of 2 senators and some media outlets. Those threats also intercepted. As we find out more about this sorting facility that intercepted the letter intended for President Trump, we'll get back to you. Martha.
Trace, thank you.
So many white powders going around. They're like, maybe one of them's just like, hey man, you left this Coke at my house. I'm just returning it to you. I knew no other way to do it, so.
God, one would hope.
Oh,
well, that situation
is gonna make it ricin.
Yeah, no joke. Yeah. That situation pretty much resolved itself pretty quick. When we got the white powder story, though, I swore I thought we were gonna get an anthrax story. I was like, oh man, this feels great. This is retro, like early 2000s.
Right?
Oh yeah, same with the shots of the Pentagon. It's like, hey, a plane went in there once. No.
No, man, was that a plane? No, we can never tell. We don't have video.
Oh, just a couple of frames.
All right, so let's go ahead and watch this clip from Face the Nation. There's a kind of a big story that's probably fake news, possibly nothing burger. That's all coming from this clip. And there's a lot of clips online of people talking about the fallout from this clip, but all those stories are like 10 minutes long, and we don't have time for them on this podcast. So let's watch this clip, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. And you'll get an idea of why we're watching it once you see the content.
Pudding.
You have said that this administration is like a smooth-running machine, and yet we keep hearing that the White House is in chaos.
It's wrong. It's so false. It's fake
news. Look
at
that high energy.
Now, out of hundreds and hundreds of people, some I could have not picked, I'm changing things around, and I'm entitled to it. I have people now on standby that will be phenomenal. They'll come into the administration. They'll be phenomenal.
More people going to go?
Yeah, other people will go, sure.
Because so many people. You have a kind of a record of on turnover.
Look, I told you the story. More. I told you the story. We have I think I have a great cabinet. There are some people that I'm not happy with. I have some people that I'm not thrilled with. And I have other people that I'm beyond thrilled with.
What about General Mattis? Is he going to leave?
Well, I don't know. He hasn't told me that. I have a very good relationship with him. I had lunch with him 2 days ago. I have a very good relationship with him. It could be that he is. I think he's sort of a Democrat, if you want to know the truth. But General Mattis is a good guy. We get along very well. He may leave. I mean, at some point, everybody leaves. Everybody. People leave. That's Washington.
Also hard hit is
Art of
Okay,
War,
so basically what they did was they took that and they ran with it, and every news outlet is basically saying Mattis is leaving the White House.
Well, that is the weirdest thing. Oh my God.
Personally, I don't believe it. Like, not yet anyway. I would have to see Mattis talk about it. I've heard that Mattis refuted that claim, but I haven't seen it personally. So basically, we're all waiting to see whether or not this is a big nothing burger. Honestly, I think okay, put on your tinfoil hat.
Oh crap! I don't have tinfoil. Wait. Oh. I got parchment paper.
Yeah, that'll work.
That'll work. I mean, kind of. It'll protect against alpha radiation.
So I think President Trump is doing a very smart thing right now. And I think that he is letting the media run with whatever fucking stupid stories they want before the election, because they're floundering and people can tell. They don't have a cohesive narrative like they did during the last election, you remember?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, they're just popping off random dumb shit.
Yep, and nothing's sticking. And the more stuff that doesn't stick, ooh, exactly. We talked about that last time. Napoleon once said, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. So I think we're seeing the Democrats and MSM dig themselves a hole, the one that they probably won't be able to get out of if you are paying attention to the news.
Ooh, yeah.
All right, so that's pretty much the end of that story. We've got 2 more clips. Let's touch base with Hurricane Michael. That fucking thing, massive damage. I was actually just watching the other day one of my favorite YouTube blacksmiths. He lives down in Florida, and they got hit by the storm. Lots of damage down there. He's actually, not that I like to plug people on the podcast or anything, but I would guess he's going to be doing a show on Discovery Channel. So not all things are bad, but his shop's pretty beat up. And I guess the death toll is rising down there. Luckily, though, it seems like like the death toll. I mean, I say luckily, but some people lost their lives. It seems like the death toll isn't that high, though the rescue operations have only just started. So let's go ahead and take a look at this clip, and then we'll move on to our high point.
Also hard hit is Panama City, Florida. It's about 50 miles northeast of Mexico Beach, where rescuers are searching for more victims. Jerika Duncan is in front of a Panama City pet store that was destroyed by the hurricane. This Google Maps image shows us what it looked like before the storm hit. Jerika, good morning.
A rush.
Before
Good morning.
and
Almost
after.
Unrecognizable, but I can't stress enough, this is an image that you will see throughout Panama City with debris everywhere, bent metal. It's almost as if some of these structures have been through a blender. Now, we got a first-hand look from up above, traveling with the U.S. Coast Guard yesterday.
Oh my
Their
God.
mission continues to be to search and rescue.
Tumbled
trees and down power lines made some
like a
roads
joke.
impassable.
Whoa.
The only way to reach the stranded was from the air. We took a helicopter ride with a Coast Guard team from Detroit, and the wreckage below was staggering.
Here's a marina off the nose here. This is pretty much devastated.
Wow, look at that.
Yep. It's pretty amazing to see the level of destruction that can be caused from a storm like this.
Some parts just look like someone literally came down with a hammer and smashed some of those homes and buildings. As of last night, the U.S. Coast Guard has rescued approximately 63 people and assisted nearly 300.
Wow.
Shout out to the Coast Guard.
Shout out. We found people clearing away the debris from 4 feet of storm surge. East Point business owner Michael Melander, who rode out the storm, says he's lucky to be alive.
We've been blessed over here. The rest of them, you know, there's a lot of them lost lives, I've heard. A lot of people's concerned.
Man, he sounds like Papa Smurf.
Everybody's worried.
People like Jason Carpenter are now without a home, power, and reliable cell service. We lent him our phone so he could contact his family for the first time
Ain't no
since the
secret
storm
about
hit.
it.
The storm, it tore the roof off. It knocked trees down. I had to have somebody help me with somebody with a chainsaw. I just wanted to let you know that I was, you know, still alive.
Hurricane Michael cut a destructive path through Panama City. Hundreds of utility workers are now here, ready to restore power. But the debris in this neighborhood stopped crews from reaching a gas line that ruptured during the height of the storm. Weary residents literally held their breath while gas company repairmen capped the leak.
We don't have to breathe it anymore. I mean, that was just one more hazard that we didn't need.
We expect some of the big box stores in this area to start opening. Yesterday, Sam's Club was open, but the line reportedly, some people waiting as long as 5 hours just to get supplies. Now, later today, a local Outback will be offering free lunch. And Dana, this is that time in aftermath of a hurricane like this where people will really be relying on anyone who can lend a helping hand, because clearly, by the looks of it, this community has a long road ahead.
Images just absolutely stunning, Jerika. And yes, a long road ahead. A lot of people joining forces to work on that. Jerika Duncan in Panama City, Florida. Thank you.
That woman's head is tall.
Still, whoever put up that display case, man, props to them. They got to get a raise. That thing lived.
For real, but seriously, that woman's head is very tall.
Dude, fucking the skinniest, fucking tallest head, bro. And the hair like accentuates it. It's like fucking quotation marks. Right?
She must have one of those just seen, like as seen on TV things. You remember those? The fucking hair bump.
Oh God, yes, I remember that. I remember that. Oh man.
You're like, yeah, I remember that. I used to see that thing in between infomercials for Girls Gone Wild.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, I remember those days. No, it's not buffering. I just have it on pause. Well,
you're good.
Horrible in our own way. No,
all right, so we've got one last final story to watch, and I have been dying to share this with you guys. This story is great. So have you got it paused on the live stream so that they can see that still?
I got it paused right there. Now it's up for them to see.
Okay, so this is an original artwork by an anonymous street artist named Banksy, and while he is famous, a lot of people might not have heard of him. Not really. So this artist, he's famous for, he doesn't really take credit for his work. I mean, he does through a pseudonym, but nobody knows who he is. A lot of people think that it might be a collective of artists, and he's been very, very vocal about not selling art for ridiculous sums of money.
So Banksy is Q.
Yeah, so there was a Banksy auction this weekend, and I think we'll just let the video play.
Oh my gosh, how can we not see that coming?
Only watch in horror as an expensive piece was shredded before their eyes. No sooner did the gavel come down to mark the sale of Banksy's Girl with Balloon for a record $1.4 million, did the picture start to slip out of its frame into shreds below. The anonymous artist claims to be behind the stunt. On Instagram, he posted a photo of his prank with the caption, "Going, going, gone." In a later post, he explained how he did it. And it seems this stunt was years in the making. He claims he built the shredder into the painting's frame in case it ever sold at auction.
No one questioned the artist.
Last chance. And selling for $860.
Witnesses couldn't believe what they were seeing. We can only imagine what the buyer was thinking. The person's identity
terrorists are doing it wrong.
Sotheby's claims it was shocked by the stunt. The auction house is also trying to figure out what this means for the value of the painting. Considering the artist, who is known for using his craft to pull pranks and make ideological points,
that he's actually kind of making a bit of a statement
the value of Girl with Balloon
like it's not just a troll.
Soar. For Inside Edition,
because I don't know if you noticed, but the girl is the only part that got shredded. Someone pointed out earlier today to me that only half of the painting was shredded.
Yeah.
And actually, so you guys know, the value of that piece has gone up dramatically.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, just huge, because now it's a piece of art history. But
dude, that
the
fucking
piece,
guy is smarter than shit.
Oh yeah, he is. So here's my reading, and I'm curious to see if you guys agree with me or if you have different opinions. But my thought is that the act of selling the artwork, the act of selling it, was kind of his statement. Like he was waiting for it to be sold so he could make the statement.
Yeah.
Because the girl is the only part of the picture that was shredded. So it's almost like him, like being shredded at giving up like a piece of himself, like a piece of his love or whatever, or like you know, something innocent being destroyed,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
once it's been, you know, sold and so on. Yeah. So I think it's like maybe a bit of philosophical commentary about the art industry, which, let's be honest, a lot of the art trade is about laundering money, guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I mean, come on. Or
well,
it was
that's
just
about
an epic troll.
You know, honestly, one of the best trolls of all time.
Yeah, dude, I'm fucking stoked that guy did that. That's fucking awesome. I don't know what his motive is like yet, but that shit's fucking hilarious.
Next time you buy a
was
painting,
pretty
make sure you
impressed.
check the frame. Especially if the frame is
fucking like
goddamn 5
radar,
inches
fucking checking
thick.
all these shit.
Like I said, man, the terrorists are doing it wrong. You just got to be Banksy and put a fucking bomb in a painting, apparently, because nobody will check it.
Oh boy! Oh, don't start giving people ideas, man.
There's this amazing artist from Tehran. He just wants to showcase his stuff at the White House.
Oh my
Don't be
God,
so
stop.
racist.
No.
Did you see all the people who were on Twitter that were like, during the Kanye West Trump hug, they're like, oh, so the Secret Service isn't going to fucking stop him from hugging Trump?
Right, he just went in. He's like, fuck it, dude. Come here, motherfucker.
Right, but here's the thought, dude. How the fuck is a guy going to get to the Oval Office with a way to kill the president?
Yeah, they're gonna get stopped. So it was cool. I mean, there's like 8 million fucking people around him.
That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
It was a funny incident. Right. Well, that's pretty much it for our show this week, guys. Got all those clips, kind of got ourselves caught up here. I think we did a pretty decent recap for the last couple weeks that we've been gone. There's definitely news that we're missing. We're not covering the Japanese drills in the South China Sea or the the sanction wars with China right now because we've got so much other crap to cover. But as shit develops, you know, coming up to these midterms, it should be an interesting show these next few weeks, I think.
Grab the popcorn.
I've got tons. I ate an entire bag of kettle corn last night. Because I'm a fat bitch. True story, come on. Alright, take us out.
All right. Thanks everybody in the chat for joining us tonight on our first show back in like what, 2 weeks? 2 or 3, something like that, for episode 18.
We felt like taking a school vacation.
Oh yeah, something like that. Had to get ourselves resituated, get our internet set up, and get my battle station all set and good. But thank you all for joining us and everything. Breadbox, you put together an awesome playlist of information, as always. Political.
I try.
I love your fucking commentary.
Beautiful in red. Yeah, it's beautiful in red in October.
Oh, it's a wonderful red October. It's exactly what it is. So
I see a red tsunami on the horizon.
Oh yeah, I do too. Predicting it. Calling it there, sure. Yeah. So yeah, if you haven't gone out and gotten registered to vote, go out and register to vote now. Do so now. If you can. Be registered, go vote, because Red Wave is not going to happen without your input, without your vote. You gotta do it. Get out there and do it. But once again,
ask your friends, ask your parents, ask your brothers, your sisters, your cousins if they're registered to vote. Don't care if you're voting Republican or Democratic, but everyone needs to be registered and everyone should vote.
Gotta go and do it.
Word.
Gotta go and do it. All right. Well, hopefully we're all gonna see y'all next week. You'll have an awesome week ahead of you. Enjoy a good day at work, good week at work, and all that stuff. And of course, you gotta buy water.
No, buy vodka.
Vodka and water.
Is that vodka neat?
I don't know.
No.
Get a screwdriver going.